So I'm going to read an essay I wrote quite a long time ago. It's a true story from my life. Here it is. I shit my pants in the south of France. I had my first colonic the other day, and for me, it was a dream come true. I've wanted a colonic for the last 10 years, but I kept denying myself something that I needed. I do the same thing with shoes. I can't buy a new pair or have the soles replaced until I'm practically barefoot. But you can't treat your colon as shabbily as a pair of shoes. You can't leave it overnight with a cobbler. So I finally broke down and went to a colon hygienist in Soho. I envision my colonic as a sort of fall cleaning, a getting ready for the new 1997 school year, though I'm no longer in school. I should mention that the week before my appointment, I took a lot of fiber supplements and ate mostly fruits and vegetables. I was trying to purify my colon before I went to the hygienist because I didn't want to be embarrassed. I was like a woman cleaning her house before the maid arrives. But the hygienist turned out to be a non-judgmental fellow. Bowel cleansing is his business, and his name is Ismail. He's a short, kind, radiant man from Uganda. He has a feminine smile, the likes of which I've only seen in photographs of enlightened nuns. His office is incredibly tiny. It's the size of a walk-in closet. There's room for the bed you lie on, and that's about it. On the walls are articles about the colon, and numerous letters from grateful patients. Above the bed are 2 square plastic containers with water whooshing around inside. They're like the containers filled with purple and red-colored drinks that one sees in old-fashioned diners. But Ismail's containers don't hold artificial grape juice. Inside them is the filtered water that is pumped into one's colon via hoses and tubes. Ismail had me undress, and I put on a medical gown in the tiny bathroom attached to his office. Then it was onto the bed where I lay on my side with my back to him. He discreetly parted my gown and inserted a lubricated tube, and I thought momentarily of Laurence Olivier in Spartacus. He began to pump water inside me, and then he reached around me and massaged my intestines in the area just above the groin. When I was really filled up, he hit some kind of switch, and the water was let out and released into a big plastic bag at the end of the bed. Essentially, I was defecating in Ismail's compassionate presence. "I'm going to find all your treasures," he said. And then he asked, "What do you do for a living?" "I'm a writer," I said. "I'd like to write a book," he said. "The things I've seen. I have one woman who I call the Animal Kingdom Lady." "Why?" I asked. "She came in here and I asked her, 'How often do you go?' She said, 'Every 2 months.' I didn't think I heard her right, so I said, 'Every 2 days?' She said, 'No.' I said, 'Every 2 weeks?' She said, 'No, every 2 months.' Can you believe it?" "Wow, she must have been really impacted," I said. "But why do you call her the Animal Kingdom Lady?" I was pumping her out, and after 20 minutes, I told her to go sit on the toilet and rest. She was in there, and then I heard screams. I opened the door, and she was shouting, "Bugs! Bugs!" In the toilet were 5 or 6 giant parasites swimming. I flushed them down. "How big were they?" I asked, horrified. He spread his fingers and indicated a size of at least 6 inches. "My God," I said, "how did she survive with those things inside her?" "I guess they left her a few crumbs to live on and took the rest of the food for themselves. That's why she hardly ever went to the bathroom. They were eating all her food. Freeloaders, the bastards." Ismail was impressed with my deductive reasoning. It seems I'm a natural when it comes to the intestines, and adventurous too. I'm sort of the George Plimpton of the colon. One of my motivations for going to Ismail was so that I could write about the experience. It's scatological participatory journalism, but each writer must find his or her domain. In speaking with Ismail about the bug lady, I further showed my flair for the subject by guessing that the parasites looked like spiders, which was correct. and Ismail explained to me that New Yorkers are loaded with parasites and worms that they get from bad meat and fish. And suddenly the whole city felt like a place infested with bugs, inside and outside of us. Just that morning, I had lifted up my hat from the kitchen table, and 2 cockroaches, probably teenagers necking, had scampered away. Ismail sensed my darkening mood, and he said, hoping to distract me, "You're a writer. Tell me a story." So I told him the following tale, which I thought he would appreciate. In 1983, I spent the summer with a good friend in the south of France, taking classes. I was good-looking then, with a full head of blonde hair. And one night, my friend and I were in a cafe with 3 lovely Dutch girls. They were praising me endlessly, telling me that I looked like a young Robert Redford, and that someday I would be famous. I was loving it, and my friend had to tolerate me getting all the attention. Then the evening wound down, and the 5 of us only had enough money for the girls to take a cab back to the dormitory, where we were all staying. Off they went, and my friend and I started walking home. A dirty man, standing in front of a cafe, offered me a tuna sandwich that was resting in the palm of his hand, sans napkin. I had a few centimes left and I was hungry, and I bought the sandwich. My judgment was impaired. I was drunk from the praise of the girls and the beer we'd been drinking. I ate the sandwich. My friend and I continued walking, and 5 minutes later I was convulsed in pain and had the most overwhelming need to shit that I'd ever experienced in my life. We started to run back to the cafe. "I'm not going to make it," I shouted. "That sandwich!" "Maybe if we stop running," my friend said. I stopped and immediately exploded with diarrhea like a ruptured sewer main. "I shat in my pants," I wailed. I had never used the past tense before. My friend crumpled to the ground, laughing. I limped into an alleyway, removed my pants, took off my underwear, which was filled like a baby's diaper, and I hid the revolting package under a parked Peugeot. I pulled my pants back up, and my legs and ass were vilified and slick. We went back to the taxi stand. I was walking very slowly. We planned to take a cab to the dorm, and then my friend would run to our room and get money for the driver. We got in a taxi. I thought everything was going to be all right. And then my own smell came to my nose and my friend's nose. We quickly rolled down the windows, but then the stink made it to the front seat. The taxi driver whipped his head around and looked right at me, following the odor's vaporish trail. In French, he shouted out me, "You shit my car like a dog! Comme un chien! Comme un chien!" He made an immediate U-turn back to the taxi stand and told all the other drivers I had shit my pants and not to take me in their cars. Humiliated, my friend and I walked home. It was a 2-mile journey and my legs were encrusted. Just as I approached the dorm, salvation, I convulsed and shit again in my pants. Robert Redford, my ass. I finished my story, and Ismail, weak from laughter, was leaning his head tenderly on my hip. We felt very close to each other. At the end of the session, we hugged goodbye. I walked through Soho, and I experienced the most profound happiness. I was relieved of all tension and anxiety. It was magnificent. My colon was clean. My spirit was light. I then headed up Fifth Avenue for an appointment at a publishing house. I was going to see a friend of mine, an editor, because her publisher wanted to meet me. He wasn't going to publish my new book, but he was a fan of my work in the New York press and had heard that I'd sold a novel. My friend brought me to the publisher's beautiful corner office, and the man offered me a gourmet cheese stick. "No, thank you," I said. I didn't want a cheese stick right after my colon had been cleaned, but the man, a good person, insisted. How could I refuse? How could I tell a stranger I just had a colonic? So I munched on the cheese stick while the publisher praised my work. And then suddenly I felt a crushing spasm in my colon, I was still pumping out water that Ismail had injected me with. I was overwhelmed with the need for release. Sweat jettisoned out of my bald spot. The publisher told me again that he loved my work. I didn't think my sphincter would hold. I was going to crap in my pants in a publishing house as I was being praised. Couldn't I have one moment in the sun? I felt faint. It was Robert Redford all over again. Then the publisher had to take a phone call, and I whispered to my friend that I needed a toilet. I rushed down the hall and made it just in time. A half hour later, I was walking home on Fifth Avenue. The spasms hit me again, hard. I fought them, and I lost. I shat. People in their fancy clothes walked past me unawares. I craned my neck, and on the seat of my pants was a big wet spot looking like a Rorschach blot. I deciphered its simple psychological message. You're a loser.